Have you ever come across the story of Ronald Reed, the janitor who left behind $8 million in savings when he passed away in 2014? Surprising, isn't it? A janitor with $8 million. And no, he didn't win a lottery or receive an inheritance. He simply saved diligently throughout his life and allowed the magic of compounding to work for him. The lesson here is that your attitude toward money often matters more than your level of intelligence. Even without a Harvard degree or a Wall Street job, you can build wealth by managing your behavior wisely. As Morgan Housel explains, financial success isn't a complex science. It's a soft skill where your actions count more than your knowledge. Spend the next 20 to 23 minutes on this video, and you might strengthen your mastery of the soft skill of investing. This is a top 5 key takeaway summary of The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, sharing the best tools and insights for achieving financial independence through stock market investing. Takeaway number 1. Pay the price. Let's begin with the first and perhaps most fundamental lesson. Pay the price. Imagine you've been eyeing a sleek luxury watch for weeks, the kind that makes a statement when you walk into a room. One day, you finally step into the store, greeted by polished glass cases and soft lighting that makes every watch sparkle a little more. You find the one, the perfect watch that would not only boost your confidence, but also impress your friends, and maybe even the person you're dating. Now, in that moment, you have 2 choices. You can either pull out your credit card, pay for it honestly, and walk out with a smile. Or, hypothetically, you could snatch it and sprint for the door, hoping your morning cardio has paid off. Of course, we both know what any decent person would do. No matter how fast you are, you'd pick option 1. You'd pay for it. Why? Because you instinctively understand that everything valuable comes with a price. You wouldn't expect to walk away with something desirable without giving something up in return. That's just how life works. And the world of investing is no different. When it comes to building wealth, there's always a fee to be paid. It's not a bill you pay upfront with cash. It's paid with something more personal: your patience, your discipline, and your emotional strength. In investing, this price usually takes the form of volatility, the uncomfortable ups and downs of the market that test your commitment. If you want high long-term returns, you have to accept periods when your portfolio will take heavy hits. The market doesn't hand out rewards for free. Throughout the years, countless investors have chased big profits through concentrated portfolios, putting large portions of their wealth into just a few well-chosen stocks. This strategy can indeed lead to incredible gains, but it also brings along greater risk. Your portfolio's performance will be much more volatile, swinging sharply up or down depending on company results or market conditions. That's the price you pay for chasing superior returns. Let's put it in perspective. Imagine your net worth drops by 20% in a single week because 2 of your major holdings reported disappointing quarterly earnings. How would you react? Would you panic, sell everything, and lock in your losses? Or would you stay calm, trusting your long-term vision? If you can't handle that kind of emotional roller coaster, then it's better not to aim for maximum returns. Because here's the simple truth. The higher the potential return, the higher the emotional fee you'll have to pay. Even legendary investors like Peter Lynch, who managed one of the most successful mutual funds in history, understood this balance. High performance never comes free. It demands resilience during the tough stretches. So, just like paying for that luxury watch, investing success requires a willingness to pay the price. You don't have to steal opportunities or chase shortcuts. You just have to stay the course when the market challenges your patience. Because that is the true cost of long-term financial success. Let's imagine a scenario. Suppose that around 10 years ago, you had incredible foresight. You could already see the bright future of Netflix, long before everyone else truly understood its potential. You recognized that streaming was the future of entertainment, that physical DVDs were on the way out, and that Netflix was positioning itself to dominate the new era of digital viewing. So, driven by your conviction, you invested a large portion of your net worth in Netflix stock. Now, if you had truly done that and held on till today, in 2025, you would likely be sitting on an enormous fortune. Netflix has grown tremendously over the past decade, and early believers have indeed become very wealthy. But here's the question that really matters. Could you have afforded to pay the emotional price of that journey? Because that journey was anything but smooth. Netflix didn't rise in a straight, comfortable line. It stumbled hard, several times. Let's rewind to 2011, for instance. The company made a strategic change that frustrated many customers, and the backlash was immediate. Millions cancelled their subscriptions, and Wall Street's reaction was brutal. The stock price plummeted by nearly 80% from its peak within a few months. Imagine watching your portfolio crash at the kitchen table. Could you stay calm? What would you tell your family as your savings seemed to vanish overnight? Would you still believe risking everything on Netflix was wise? That's the real test of an investor, staying strong through fear and uncertainty, not just celebrating success afterward. Even with safe investments like the S&P 500, long drops of 20 to 50% are normal. Patience and emotional control are the true skills. Market crashes aren't punishments. They're the price of long-term wealth. Those who stay steady during chaos are the ones who ultimately win. For long-term success. Takeaway number 2, never enough.
It's a very interesting phenomenon that you can hand somebody a $2 million bonus and they're fine until they find out that the person next to them got $2.1 million, and then they're sick for the next year.
This is one of capitalism's greatest paradoxes. It's brilliant at creating wealth, but equally brilliant at creating envy. The same system that pushes society forward also traps individuals in a constant race, not necessarily to be rich, but to be richer than someone else. The desire to surpass our neighbors, peers, and even friends can indeed be a powerful motivator. It can fuel long nights of hard work, innovation, and persistence. In moderation, that's a good thing. Ambition drives growth. The problem arises when comparison replaces gratitude, when progress feels meaningless unless someone else has less than we do. Let's bring this down to numbers, to perspective. To belong to the top 1% of income earners in the United States, you'd need to make around $500,000 a year. That's the kind of income our fictional character Bill earns. He's a highly specialized doctor. By almost any standard, Bill is rich. He drives luxury cars, takes vacations to beautiful countries, and outsources tedious chores to save time. Life is good. Bill is proud of his accomplishments, until he buys a vacation home in the Hamptons and meets his new neighbor, Stan. Stan isn't just rich, he's ultra-rich. He's the CEO of a large public company, making around $10 million per year. Suddenly, Bill doesn't feel so accomplished anymore. His house looks smaller. His car feels outdated. His success starts to feel like failure. You'd think Stan, at least, would be satisfied with his fortune. But he isn't. Stan happens to be childhood friends with Michael Jordan, a man who belongs to the top 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Michael's fortune? Roughly $2 billion. To him, Stan's $10 million annual salary looks like pocket change. And, of course, even Michael occasionally attends gatherings with people like Jeff Bezos, who sits atop the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. In 2020 alone, Bezos increased his net worth by about $75 billion, bringing his total to nearly $200 billion. And that's the point. There's always a bigger fish. This endless ladder of comparison never ends. Each rung you climb only reveals another person standing higher above you. And the higher you go, the more fragile satisfaction becomes. Throughout history, this type of envy has driven many to make foolish, even disastrous choices. Some have leveraged their portfolios recklessly to keep up with wealthier peers, only to lose everything in a single downturn. Others have acted on insider information, chasing the illusion of quick success, and ended up losing not only their reputations, but also their freedom when the law caught up to them. Many have sacrificed family and health in pursuit of just a little more. They've lost the warmth of home, the love of their partners, and the trust of their children, all for a prize that never truly satisfies. Here's the hard truth. If you keep measuring your life by what others have, you will never feel rich, no matter how much money you make. By watching this channel, by learning about investing and financial growth, chances are high that one day you'll reach a level of financial freedom that most people only dream about. You'll have the resources, the stability, and the independence that once felt out of reach. But when that moment comes, remember this lesson. You must decide what enough means for you. True wealth isn't in numbers, but in peace.
We will not trade something that that we have and need for something that we don't have and don't need, even if we kind of like to have it.
Keep striving, but don't forget to pause and feel grateful for what you already have. That's when you're truly rich. Takeaway number 3. Crazy is in the eye of the beholder. At first glance, it's easy to look around and think that a lot of people do completely irrational things with their money. Some spend enormous sums on items that seem absurdly unnecessary. Expensive cars they can't afford, designer brands they rarely wear, or luxury gadgets that add no real value to their lives. Others go to the opposite extreme, hiding their savings in a safe or even under their mattress, terrified of taking any risk with their money. To an outsider, both of these behaviors can look foolish, even crazy. But before we judge, we need to take a step back and remember something crucial. Every person's financial behavior is shaped by their unique story. People grow up in different environments. They have different parents, different values, different experiences with money, and very different levels of education and opportunity. A child who grew up watching their parents struggle to pay bills or lose everything in a financial crisis will not see risk the same way as someone who grew up in comfort and stability. The first person might value safety above all else, even if it means missing out on opportunities, while the second might see investing or spending as a normal part of life. In short, our money habits are emotional, not purely logical. What seems irrational or crazy to you might make perfect sense to someone else. Morgan Housel illustrates this beautifully in his book with the example of lottery tickets. In America, households with the lowest income levels spend over $400 a year on lottery tickets. That's about 4 times more than the amount spent by those in the highest income group. Now, combine that with another reality. More than a third of Americans can't even come up with $400 in case of an emergency. On the surface, it seems utterly insane. Are these people really spending their emergency savings, the very money that could help them during a crisis, on lottery tickets? At first, yes, it sounds absurd. But when you shift your perspective, you begin to understand. These individuals often live paycheck to paycheck, with very little margin to save or build wealth. Many of them have never had access to financial education or guidance. They don't have clear career paths or growth opportunities waiting for them. For them, buying a lottery ticket isn't just a gamble. It's a tiny piece of hope, a momentary escape from the harsh reality they face daily. So when we look closer, their actions, though seemingly irrational, are rooted in human emotion, hope, and struggle. It's a reminder that in finance, as in life, there's no single definition of crazy. There are only people trying to make sense of their world with the tools, experiences, and beliefs they have. They can't afford a nice vacation or a new car, and sending their children to college without taking on massive debt is nearly impossible. Buying a lottery ticket for them isn't just a game. It's an act of imagination, a way of buying into the dream that many others already live every single day. It's their version of hope, their version of possibility. When you think of it that way, it doesn't seem so irrational after all. That's why these individuals purchase lottery tickets more frequently than those who are financially secure. Not because they're careless, but because they crave a glimpse of a better future. It's not craziness, it's humanity. So, how does understanding this help you become a better investor? The answer lies in empathy and self-awareness. Once you accept that people's financial choices are shaped by their backgrounds, experiences, and emotional realities, you stop trying to copy others. You no longer feel the need to mirror someone else's portfolio, lifestyle, or risk tolerance. Instead, you start crafting an investment strategy that fits your goals, your values, and your psychology. A portfolio that works for a billionaire might not work for you, and vice versa. Why? Because your priorities are different. A billionaire is primarily concerned with staying rich. Their game is about preservation. But an ordinary investor's focus is often on growth, moving from stability to abundance, not from abundance to eternity. So, while a billionaire might keep 80% of their wealth in low-risk assets, someone still building their fortune might sensibly choose to take on more risk in pursuit of long-term returns. Recognizing that difference, that your journey doesn't need to look like anyone else's, is what separates emotionally intelligent investors from impulsive ones. Takeaway number 4. Peekaboo. What do the Great Depression, World War II, the 2008 financial crisis, and the COVID-19 pandemic all have in common? They were all unpredictable events that reshaped the world, socially, politically, and financially. They shocked economies, wiped out fortunes, and redefined what people thought was safe. Yet none of them were truly foreseeable. Even the sharpest economists, analysts, and investors failed to see them coming until it was too late. Author and statistician Nassim Nicholas Taleb calls such rare world-altering events black swans. By definition, a black swan event has 3 main characteristics. 1. It's an outlier. Nothing in past data convincingly points to the possibility of it happening. 2. It has an extreme, lasting impact on systems, markets, and human behavior. 3. It becomes explainable only after it happens, when people create logical stories to justify why it should have been obvious. Human nature is funny that way. We're wired to believe that the future should make sense, that we should have seen it coming. But the truth is, we rarely do. Imagine for a moment that it's October 19th, 1987. Black Monday. The stock market just lost nearly 23% of its value in a single day. What would you have done? Would you have joined the panic, yelling, "Sell, sell everything," as prices collapsed? Or would you have been one of the few who stayed calm, kept your faith, and maybe even used your cash reserves to buy more while everyone else ran for the exits? Here's a powerful reminder. If you had invested in the S&P 500 index fund 20 years ago, but missed out on just the 4 best performing days during that entire period, your total return would drop from around 291% to roughly 164%. Missing just 4 days made the difference between extraordinary wealth and moderate success. That's the silent cost of letting fear control your behavior. And it's the reason why timing the market almost never works. The moral of this takeaway is simple but profound. You can't predict disasters, but you can prepare for them. Rather than trying to guess when the next crash will happen, focus on building emotional and financial resilience. Keep a long-term mindset. Have an emergency fund. Diversify your portfolio. And most importantly, stop obsessing over macroeconomic forecasts. The big events that will cause the next wave of panic are the ones no one will see coming anyway. Takeaway number 5. The seduction of pessimism. Now, let's talk about something that seduces nearly every investor at some point. Pessimism. Imagine I gave you a list of reasons why the stock market might crash later this year. I could point to the massive US national debt, which is now well over $34 trillion. I could mention how global inflation remains sticky, how interest rates have stayed high for longer than expected, or even how new geopolitical tensions could destabilize markets overnight. I might add that artificial intelligence could lead to widespread unemployment, or that a new strain of disease could emerge post-2025. If I said all that, chances are you'd lean forward and listen carefully. You might even start feeling nervous, wondering whether it's time to sell your investments or move your money to cash. That's the seductive power of pessimism. It feels intelligent. It makes us think we're being realistic, cautious, and smart. Now, if I flipped the script and gave you reasons why things might actually keep getting better, like how life expectancy in America continues to rise, how renewable energy is becoming cheaper and more efficient every year, or how technology is solving complex problems faster than ever before, you'd probably shrug. Optimism sounds boring. It sounds naive. But here's the truth. Progress is slow, quiet, and steady, while disasters are loud, sudden, and dramatic. That's why the news always favors pessimism. It sells. Yet, over the long run, the optimistic investor, the one who believes that innovation and resilience will continue, is almost always the one who wins. It's fascinating how, in almost every conversation about money, the pessimistic voice instantly sounds wiser. When someone says, "This market will collapse soon," they're perceived as realistic, grounded, even brilliant. Meanwhile, the optimist, the one who says, "Things will continue improving," often sounds naive, as if they're blind to reality. But why is that? Why do we instinctively associate pessimism with intelligence and optimism with ignorance? Behavioral scientist Daniel Kahneman, author of the masterpiece Thinking, Fast and Slow, provides an answer. He explains that our brains are wired with what's known as loss aversion, the natural tendency to feel the pain of losing something far more intensely than the joy of gaining something of equal value. It's not just psychology, it's biology. From an evolutionary standpoint, early humans who paid more attention to danger than to opportunity were more likely to survive. Those who ignored threats in pursuit of rewards didn't make it far enough to pass on their genes. So over thousands of years, the instinct to listen carefully to bad news and to treat every potential loss as urgent became hard-coded into human behavior. Today, when someone warns that the economy might crash, that instinct fires up again, the same one that once helped our ancestors escape predators. Yet this instinct, while useful for survival, can be destructive in investing. Because in finance, reacting too strongly to pessimism often leads us to sell too early, fear too deeply, and miss out on long-term growth. We also tend to take pessimists more seriously for another reason. Progress is slow and quiet, while setbacks are loud and sudden. A pandemic, a market crash, a war. These things can happen in a single week and change everything overnight. But real progress, innovations in medicine, renewable energy, technology, or education, unfolds over years, even decades. It's gradual, steady, and often invisible day to day. That's why pessimistic stories are more intriguing and persuasive. They happen fast. They're easy to visualize. A crash makes headlines. A cure takes time. If you tell someone that the stock market will crash next month, they'll listen intently. If you tell them that life expectancy will increase by 5 years over the next few decades, they'll nod politely and move on. One feels urgent, the other feels abstract. Optimism, by contrast, requires a longer lens. To tell an optimistic story about the future, you must zoom out and look at decades, not days. You have to believe in gradual improvements, in human ingenuity, resilience, and adaptability. That doesn't sound dramatic, so it rarely captures attention. But it's how real progress has always worked. So, if you catch yourself being drawn more to pessimists than to optimists, pause and remember this imbalance. It's not because pessimists are smarter. It's because they're pressing ancient buttons in your brain. Understanding that bias can make you a better investor and a calmer human being. Hans Rosling, author of Factfulness, famously said, "The world is better than you think." And he was right. By almost every measurable standard, health, technology, literacy, poverty reduction, humanity has moved forward, even if it doesn't always feel that way when you turn on the news. That wraps up today's takeaways. But it's far from the end of Morgan Housel's wisdom. His book, The Psychology of Money, remains one of the most insightful works ever written about how human behavior shapes financial outcomes. If you haven't read it yet, do yourself a favor. It's not just a book about money. It's a book about life, emotions, and decisions. And if you'd like to go deeper, stay tuned. The next video recommendation will help you explore how human psychology continues to influence your relationship with wealth, and how mastering that inner game is the real path to freedom. Cheers to your growth.
Cheers.
Both financially and mentally.